Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I'm Maria Casillas, joined by my incredible co-host Cody Sizemore, and we are excited to be here today to talk about some really interesting things, maybe even some controversial things, depending on the listener, but that's how we like to roll here. we share with you what's on our mind and then let you kind of parse that out on your own. So we would like to first just say thank you to everyone who is here today, who is listening, and all of those of you who have tuned in, whether it's last week or the week before or for the last 3 years since we've been doing this. We just want to say thank you. You are what make this show for us, and that's why we show up, is for you. So keep coming, and we'll keep giving you some really great content. All right, today we're going to talk about some creative ways. We're going to use that word. I think it's actually a really good word to use. But like I said, it might be something that's a little out of left field for some people who are listening today. So I do think that Cody's going to be a really good expert for us on this topic. I know he's been doing this for a long time, and he has a really great way of introducing this to his clients. But before I keep building it up, let me just tell you what we're talking about is helping your client invest in what you are offering them. Because if you're anything like us, it's going to be a bit of a heavy investment, and that can be really difficult for people sometimes. And so we want to talk about the different ways to help that be a little bit easier for them. So without further ado, let me just say hello to you, Cody. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm good. You might hear some nasally sounds in the background. I'm overcoming a really nasty something that I don't even know what it was. Probably the flu, but it's
that time of year.
Yeah, it is. And I was so excited that I got all the way through Christmas without any of it, all the way through New Year. And I think I got a little bit too, big for my britches, and it hit me about a week and a half ago. So I'm still on the mend from that. I feel fine, but I sound crazy. So I'll try not to laugh, because if I laugh, it goes into this coughing fit, and the mute button will be a friend of mine today.
So. Okay, well, I'll be sure to keep it nice and bland.
Right. Yeah, sure.
So.
I don't think you can, but thanks for trying. All right. So what do you think about this topic, Cody? Am I overstating it? Is it controversial, or is it really not? What do you think?
I think that it depends on your own viewpoints on things.
Okay.
Because for some people, this wouldn't be controversial at all.
Yep.
In fact, it would just make sense.
Okay.
And for other people, they've thought about things a certain way for so long, or they've heard things a certain way for so long, and it kind of is like almost like a red flag kind of thing, where it's like, oh my gosh, this word is being brought up. What are we going to do? So for those people, it might be controversial, and I'll be totally transparent with you. I was one of those people on the ladder for a long time. I felt this way. And then I had, someone, I actually hired a business coach, and, this topic came up, and, I expressed my concerns with it, and he kind of talked me through it in a way that really opened my eyes to a different perspective. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot and kind of see how it feels, and also how it goes. And if everything goes well, then great. And if not, then I just won't do it. And I ended up doing it, and it felt good. And it worked well. And not just talking about working well for me, but it actually worked really well for my clients as well, which I was like really happy to see. So, we'll keep dangling the carrot for a little bit, but I want to talk about helping clients make your investment in two different kinds of scenarios. One would be, I guess you could say, a little bit less controversial. And then the other one would be the more controversial one. So I think it probably makes sense to start with the less one.
Sure.
Because I want to keep people on the edge of their seats, like I don't.
They haven't figured it out by now.
Yeah, I don't want to give it to them. So, Maria, you've been doing this for a while as well, and you know that sometimes getting started with a financial coaching program, especially if someone's in a relatively tough situation to where they have a decent amount of debt and that's taking away a lot of their income, that can be challenging. In fact, it might be the most challenging part of doing the program, and as a whole, is just getting started with it, right? Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
Right. So that's something that I tell my prospective clients, when I'm on a consultation with them and I'm talking to them through the investment portion, I tell them all the time, I'm like, sometimes just getting started with this is the hardest part, because we look at this as almost like a extra quote unquote expense, when really that's not what it is. It's actually a investment kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you might have a little bit less money on a month to month basis while you're working with me, but the money that you do have is going to actually work better for you. And it's going to feel like you have more money regardless of this quote unquote extra expense kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important to just kind of talk through with your potential clients about different ways that you could structure things to help them get started. There's a lot of coaches that say, well, hey, it's a flat, X amount of dollars a month. So I'll just use the example, $500 a month kind of thing. And if you can do that, great. If you can't, then it won't work kind of thing. And that's fine if you want to do that. But there are some people who you're on that phone call with them, and obviously you want to get that first initial deposit or payment while you're on the phone call. Otherwise, it's not real. And they might not have that $500 in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that being flexible with people is really important. Maybe it means that, you spread it out over the course, if it's like a 6-month program, let's just say, because that's what I do. Maybe you spread it out over the course of 7 months or 8 months, and you're just straight up with them. And that means that, the monthly amount would go down a little bit. Maybe it means that you don't get started with them immediately because, the next day or the next week, whatever. But maybe it means hey, we get half down today as an initial deposit of good faith. So maybe $250 because maybe they do have that. And then in, a week or maybe 2 weeks, you get the other half and then you get started kind of thing. So my big thing is we don't need to be so all or nothing with people.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're not all or nothing with people, and we tell them hey, I'm very flexible with this. I want to make sure that we do the best thing for you. We can structure it however makes the most sense for you. They really do appreciate that. They really do. And it actually makes them feel more comfortable to make the investment instead of just, you sticking to your guns and saying hey, this is just what it is. And if you can do it, great. And if not, then sorry about your luck, sister, kind of thing.
And I think as I hear you talking, this is probably not something that you are necessarily thinking about, but I hear modeling going on. And I think that's why this is so important. You mentioned that it's hard for us sometimes we're going to be all or nothing. And I want to just say out loud that I know that our clients are oftentimes all or nothing thinkers. And so I don't think it's a good idea for us to model all or nothing. And then not have any of that flexibility, because what that is showing them is that all or nothing is the way to go. And we're actually in our coaching sessions going to be trying to help them break that all or nothing thinking. And so this is just a really good way to almost subconsciously show and model to them that we are not going to be stuck in that all or nothing thinking, and that we're hoping that they also are not stuck there.
Yeah, I agree. Like you mentioned, it's almost like you're planting a seed of that before the coaching begins,
right?
Kind of thing, And again, I think that the most important thing here is not getting the investment from these clients, but really making sure that you start off the coaching with a really good relationship. And if you can say, hey, this is what I would love to see, and if you can do it, great. But if not, I'm here to meet you where you're at, kind of thing, and work with you because I want to help you, kind of thing. That's a really good way to start a relationship.
Agreed.
It's a really good way, So I thought that it was important for us just to touch on that a little bit. Not going to spend too much time on that because, it's a little bit more, I guess you could say, normal or self-explanatory or whatever it might be. but just, being patient with people, being flexible with people, and really leading your investment with their best interests at heart.
Amen to that part, for sure.
Yeah. So now, the moment you've all been waiting for, we're going to get into the more quote unquote potentially controversial approach here, because I've had a number of people to where I go through their situation and I see that the numbers are telling me that they should have like a decent surplus at the end of the month between their expenses, between their bills, their spending habits, all that kinds of stuff. When you look at the income and then you take away all those different types of things, there might be like, $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 or more that should be there that they can then use to dig themselves out of this hole. But because their situation, they haven't really been taught anything, and they've been kind of just doing what they do for years and years. What has led to that is that, hey, they just don't have a really good relationship with their money, and they also don't know what to do with it or how to handle it or how to organize it. And as a result of that, they feel as if they're living paycheck to paycheck, when really they shouldn't be feeling that way, kind of thing. But it doesn't change the fact that in this very moment, that's what they're dealing with, and that's what they're feeling, and that's what they're seeing, right? So with those types of people, to where I can see this is very obvious that something's clearly wrong here, and all it needs is just a little bit of love and attention for it to really turn around. This is where something can be brought up as a way to invest into your program, and it's a creative way. And I will also say this, maybe this person doesn't have anything in savings either, kind of thing, because of what I just mentioned, right? So in this scenario, they don't have anything in savings. They don't really have anything in their checking account to even make an initial deposit. And the idea of doing it as a installment plan really stresses them out, because again, they've been conditioned in their brain for so long that like, well, I don't have any more room, even though they might in fact have room. But in their head, they tell themselves that they don't have it. One thing that I've seen that works really well, and it works well not just for the coach, but it actually really serves the clients, is actually having them put the initial investment as like an in full investment on a credit card.
Oh,
I know. I know.
And there it is.
Yeah. So if you're still listening to this, and you haven't turned it off yet, let me explain the thought process. Because like I said earlier, for a long time, I was conditioned that like credit cards are essentially like the devil kind of thing, and they're horrible. You should never use them. You should, pay them off every month, like all this kinds of stuff, right? And I had hired a business coach to really help me scale my business. And, this was something that he actually suggested to me at first. And I told him, I was like, I don't feel comfortable doing that, especially with what I help people with, which is getting themselves out of this debt.
May I ask a question, please?
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to clarify here. Was he suggesting to you that you use a credit card to pay for his services, or was he, when he said he made the suggestion, this was his suggestion on how you can be creative with your clients?
The latter.
The latter. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. So I expressed my concerns to him, and he was like, hey, dude, I totally get that. And this isn't something that you have to do, but hear me out for a minute. And I was like, okay. And he goes, credit cards are not for putting a vacation on. They're not for putting a fancy meal on. They're not for getting the new Xbox or anything like that. What they're really for is investing into you. And, because you're the most appreciating asset that anyone could ever have. So if you're investing into yourself, into your knowledge, your skills, your your mindsets, your belief patterns, all different types of things, then that will pay off for you tenfold as compared to walking away from something that maybe you really need and would benefit from, but you just don't feel comfortable asking someone to do that kind of thing, right? And I was like, that makes sense. And then I thought about it more and I was like, well, what would it look like if I were to ask someone to do this, right? And I'm going to use the example of someone who has a larger potential surplus that is definitely there, but they're just not tapping into it quite yet. So let's say that it's somewhere around like $1,500 a month that they could really tap into and make work for them. And then let's also say that your coaching program is like a $3,000 investment kind of thing. Rather than looking at that $3,000 investment and breaking it down over the course of 6 months, if you do the math on that, that is basically like, what is it, $500 a month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
For $3,000
$500
yes.
a month, right? So you could do that. And, you know, it could make it, they could do that as well. But at the same time, it's also a $500 a month, thing that's coming out of their bank account. Whereas if they were to put it on a credit card, usually, the amount that it adds to your minimum payment is around 2% of the balance. So really, if we look at like that $3,000 investment and we times that by 2%, really, let me pull up my calculator here if it would work for me. Let me see here. So 3,000.
About $60.
Yeah, $60 a month, right? So $60 a month versus $500 a month kind of thing. They're able to go into this whole process with more at their disposal to then attack their goals kind of thing. And if we really look at that, if it's only adding $60 a month, that's essentially nothing. And we look at this and we say, okay, well, after we go through things and we do confirm that there is a $1,500 surplus that they can put towards their goals, the return on investment would be essentially 2 months. So this entire thing could be paid for, and then you'd never have to worry about it again after only 2 months versus 6 months if you were to do the installment plan kind of thing. And all in the process of doing that, it's not adding too much of a extra hit to their monthly expenses either kind of thing. And if we look at that and we say, hey, like priority number one is getting this investment paid for kind of thing, then it actually adds a lot of value to them. And the way that I've seen this work for people and benefit people in so many different ways, because I've had a lot of people do this, is that's what usually happens. And I almost think of it as like a slingshot, like you have your current situation, maybe you're just holding that slingshot, and then you pull that slingshot back, which might be the investment. And then once you get things going, you're able to kind of let go of that. And when you do, it just goes and it just explodes forward at great speed because you're not having anything affect your month to month too much. You're able to pay it off very, very quickly and very efficiently. And then you never have to think about it again kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's the way I see it. And, it's really helped me not only onboard new clients, but also it's helped those clients be able to step into coaching. And then also it's helped them to get the help that they need and really, really start attacking things with like a huge springboard kind of thing. So I tried it once. It worked really well. So then I tried it again. It worked really well. In fact, I haven't had it not work well, to be honest with you. Now, that might just be a luck thing. That might be a skill thing on my end. It could be a number of variables that go into there. I don't want to say this is like a guaranteed success thing. But what I will say is in my experience, it has served me and my clients exponentially.
Wonderful. So just a couple of things that I'm pulling out as you talk. One is the idea of cash flow. So what you're pointing out when you say that you have $500 payment versus a $60 payment is the effect of that payment on the client's cash flow. Mm-hmm. And so, as you guys are thinking about this and how it works, I mean, if you're going to, if you're going to try this, then you do want to make sure that it's going to affect their cash flow in a positive way rather
Correct.
than in a negative way. But
Yep.
the other thing that I'm hearing you say, Cody, and I think this is part of where that skill part comes in, is that before giving them this information, or before giving them this option,
Mhm.
that they have that surplus, whether or not they see it yet, but they do have it. So what that says to me is that you have taken the time to really dig into their numbers.
Mhm.
I'm assuming you have some sort of framework, something that you plug in numbers, certain amount or whatever.
Yep.
And I don't know if you do that in the discovery session, or if you do a discovery session and then this is like your first session. I'm not quite sure how all that works. But I do want our clients, because I know everyone does discovery sessions a little bit differently. So I just want to make sure that our listeners are hearing that you don't just hear what their issue is and then throw this out there as an option. You've actually been able to see kind of on paper, black and white, if it's something that would benefit them. So
Right.
I just wanted to pull that out. And then the last thing I want to just make sure that we touch on a little bit deeper, if we may, is the benefit to the client. Because for me, that's always one of the number one things that we want to look at. And I think you've done a really great job of laying out what the benefits are for the clients. But I just want to hone in on that just a little bit more and ask you, what sort of feedback or testimonials, or maybe those are the two words, have these clients given you, if any, as to how this affected them looking back? So they've gotten over that hump, they've made that payment, they've gone through your coaching, they have paid that off, maybe 2-3 times already, and now they're on the other side of that. What have they said to you, if anything, about that approach?
Yeah, so I'm going to address one thing first, and then I'll get to that.
Okay.
I do want to make it clear that I don't offer this option to everybody.
Okay.
Because if it doesn't serve them, then I wouldn't be in integrity kind of thing, right? So you're right. During the discovery session, I do make sure that I comb through things and get a full understanding, not just an estimation or anything like that, but like a full understanding on what their situation looks like and what it could look like as well. And then if it makes sense, then I do present the option. And again, sometimes I present the option to people and they're like, no, I don't think I want to do that. I think I do want to do the monthly kind of thing. And in that scenario, I'm like, okay, great. Let's do that instead. I just wanted to present the option to you kind of thing. So I just want to say that first. But in regards to feedback from people, I get a lot of awesome testimonials, whether they be written, whether it be, them telling me as we're kind of wrapping up our program, whether it be through referrals, whatever it might be. I get a ton of awesome testimonials and stuff like that and feedback. But I'll tell you, I don't think that one time with that feedback or testimonials, they've brought up putting it on a card initially, because it gets taken care of so quickly and it's almost kind of painless for them
It
in
becomes
a
a
way
moot point.
that it's kind of a moot point. Like,
Yeah.
the feedback and the testimonials that they give me is what their experience was with me and what the results that they got from the program, and so, and the relationship that we built as well. And what's beautiful about that is like, that wouldn't have ever happened for these people if both me and them were so like, we're absolutely not doing the credit card thing. Because if we were like that, then maybe they would have never have gotten that result. They would have never had that experience. And therefore, they wouldn't have been in this new place that they've been trying to do for literally years.
Mm-hmm.
But because they were able to, they and me were able to kind of lay down a few of our, initial thoughts on things, welcomed a new perspective, and then stepped into that open door, that's what brought all of this beauty to light kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were able to ditch the black and white thinking, the all or nothing, and be able to embrace a little creativity, and also mix with integrity. That's a very important piece of this.
The most important.
Yeah. And then find a win-win situation for everybody, which I think is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So, last thing I'll say is that if you're listening to this still, and you are one of those people who have been kind of conditioned, whether it be from your own experience or you've been told over and over and over and over and over that credit cards are the devil and you shouldn't be using them in any way, shape, or form, I do want you to at least let this sink in a little bit. Let it marinate for a little bit. I'm not telling you to go, stop listening to this podcast and then go have a consultation in an hour and try it right now. You can if you'd like, but I am just saying, like, let it marinate a little bit. And you can do it if you want. If you don't, no sweat. I'm not telling you to do anything. It's just, I'm giving you my perspective. And I think that that's what this show is really cool about. We just we pull back the curtain and we fill you in on what's going on in our worlds, and hopefully you get some value from it. So the decision is ultimately yours. I think that what's important, though, is that whatever route you do, whatever route you try, that you make sure that it's aligned with your values and that you're operating out of integrity, no matter what you do.
I agree. Thank you so much for being willing to talk about this. It's something I think we've been wanting to talk about for a little while, and I'm really glad that you've been able to kind of use your own coaching practice as not a guinea pig per se, but, to show what it's over the course of many months, to show the effects that it's been having on your clients. So we're not just out here talking about the what ifs. You're actually just able to say, look, this is what's going on, and this is the positive effect it's had on people. So it just brings a little bit more structure and grit, I think, to the topic. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course.
And to all of you who stuck with us during this entire topic, we appreciate you. And I actually am excited to hear back from some of you who try some of this. And Cody, I know I'm throwing you on the spot right now, but I think that having I know we have Patreon coming and some ways to kind of connect with you a little bit closer and deeper and have access to some of your things. So I may be speaking out of turn right now, but I think it'd be really cool for you to make available I don't know if it's an Excel sheet. I don't know what you use, but the format that you use in order to gather enough of this information from individuals to determine whether or not this is something that would be good for them. So that is something that we can totally talk about when we're not on the show. But those of you who are listening, maybe that will be something that's available to us later on, and we can then not have to recreate the wheel. So,
yeah, it's a good idea. Good idea. So pay attention, because that might be down the pipeline. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening today. Make sure you join our Facebook group if you haven't. It's called The Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. We're going to be having a lot of new and exciting updates here pretty soon for all of you, and you'll get a lot of value from that. So make sure you join if you haven't, and let us know what you thought about this episode too. Even if you didn't like it, I can take it. It's fine. And we'll go from there. So until then, we'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.